Nuestra oficina en la zona adyacencia realiza verificaciones a solicitud de ambos gobiernos, facilita reuniones y patrullajes conjuntos entre las Fuerzas Armadas y promueve una cultura de paz y cooperación entre las comunidades locales.
Children will be children and they have harmony. They don't see each other as a different country, but they see each other that they're growing together.
Este video fue producido con la ayuda financiera de la Unión Europea.
Hoy, esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
SETI's results for 2018 proves our effectiveness as a development partner, placing people at the center of our work and leveraging partnerships and cooperation to transform policy imperatives into action. With an eye on the rapidly changing global context, SETI is innovating to constructively address the emerging challenges and opportunities for the region. As part of our competitiveness program, SETI is designing precise tools to assess assets and capabilities in the productive sector to determine paths towards higher value goods and services. As our flagship program for partnerships, the Americas Competitiveness Exchange on Innovation and Entrepreneurship, OAS, will continue to leverage good practices and the power of networks to increase trade and investment in the region.
For us, the role of the OAS is very important, connecting countries, connecting governments and private sector, and letting us know what other countries are doing and how we can replicate that in our countries to enhance development.
For me, who has come here to look at how can we develop our own ecosystem, our own innovation hubs, our own accelerators, I think seeing this, touching, feeling, seeing the transformation, seeing how quickly you made it happen, is a testament to what is possible. So I believe all of us leave here stronger than ever.
The Working Group of Experts on Subnational Competitiveness, the GTEX, is our gateway program to promote local economic competitiveness policies alongside municipal and state-level governments, together with the private sector and academia.
Este tipo de reuniones te sirven para darte cuenta de todo lo que se está viviendo en América Latina sobre los temas de competitividad. Y hoy justamente en este sector estamos viendo sobre todo los temas de innovación tecnológica, pues que si hablamos de competitividad tenemos que hablar de tecnología. Y me está ayudando mucho para ver el panorama de ver lo que están haciendo otras ciudades y lo que podemos llegar a aplicar también nosotros en México.
The Hub on the Transfer and Commercialization of Technology is connecting and strengthening national innovation ecosystems in the region. Each edition of the Hub trains budding technology entrepreneurs from the region's public and private sectors to take promising products and services from idea to market.
¿Por qué es importante que estemos juntos en esto? Porque la región tiene que estar unida y me parece que hay mucho conocimiento en la región que todavía no está explotado comercialmente como podría ser, y esta es la mejor manera de hacerlo.
Tenemos la proyección de cada año generar y compartir nuevas experiencias entre aquellos que contribuyen a la innovación.
Queremos cambiar el cómo lo hemos estado haciendo en Latinoamérica. Queremos generar la unión de los países, queremos colaborar.
Our virtual platform on technology foresight, Prospecta Americas, will support OAS member states in identifying and mapping future trends and technological development of critical importance for the Americas.
Este esfuerzo, el cual viene siendo apoyado por la Organización de los Estados Americanos, nos permitirá tener una gran información para poder mapear estas iniciativas de innovación y poder que ellas contribuyan al crecimiento económico, a la competitividad y al bienestar de nuestras naciones.
Como bien sabemos, nos encontramos ya en la cuarta revolución industrial, la que está cambiando rápidamente la forma en que se hace negocios, se produce, se consume y se genera bienestar y entretenimiento en el mundo. Es la mayor amenaza, tal vez la mejor oportunidad que tenemos en nuestras naciones.
The Inter-American Teacher Education Network, the I-10, is working to improve the quality of teachers with an emphasis on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education. In 2019, the I-10 launched the first STEM Teacher Fellowship of the Americas. The Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas, ECPA, is working with governments in the Caribbean to advance electric mobility and clean transport as the sub-region pursues energy independence. Under our Integrated Water Resources Management Program, SETI is responding to the demand of member states for platforms and applications that enable data-driven policies. In the Central American region, for example, we are expanding the scope of Costa Rica's Plataforma Interactiva de Aplicación del Clima Tropical. This tool captures and disseminates real-time climate and water data, promoting resilient agriculture. The Inter-American Committee on Ports is building human and institutional capacity through public-private partnerships to address port modernization, logistics, and security. CooperaNet, SETI's multi-stakeholder platform for cooperation and partnerships, is being relaunched in 2019, responding to member states' call for a more robust hub for cooperation. In a region where 8 out of 10 consumers begin or end their shopping process online, SETI has entered into a partnership with the private sector.
Es una herramienta que sin duda acerca a las MIPYMES hacia la demanda que hoy está migrando a Internet, y con eso pretendemos mejorar las ventas y el posicionamiento de las empresas pequeñas.
As we look to the future, the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development will continue to leverage cooperation and partnerships to expand our reach, proving that together we are much more than the sum of our 34 member states.
Me and my kids have been there for over an year right now. And children are friends. It doesn't matter where they come from.
Estamos en una zona netamente selvática. La línea de adyacencia va desde el norte hasta el sur, va desde Modesto Méndez hasta Aguas Turbias, tanto en el norte como en el sur. Esta línea tiene 215 kilómetros de extensión.
De allí vino él, se buscó creo con los de la OAS y de allí vino el proyecto para acá, para Judá. Y fue que lo dieron el terreno y lo dieron todo que era mano de obra y el material para hacer las casas que están ahorita. Y por ese motivo estamos aquí viviendo todavía.
La misión continúa trabajando en la implementación de medidas de fomento de la confianza mientras se aguarda el resultado del reclamo que está atendiendo la Corte Internacional de Justicia por la disputa marítima, territorial e insular. Nuestra oficina en la zona de adyacencia realiza verificaciones a solicitud de ambos gobiernos, facilita reuniones y patrullajes conjuntos entre las Fuerzas Armadas y promueve una cultura de paz y cooperación entre las comunidades locales.
Children will be children. And they have harmony. They don't see each other as a different country, but they see each other that they're growing together.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos, No podemos ser neutrales.
More than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
SETI's results for 2018 proves our effectiveness as a development partner, placing people at the center of our work and leveraging partnerships and cooperation to transform policy imperatives into action. With an eye on the rapidly changing global context, SETI is innovating to constructively address the emerging challenges and opportunities for the region. As part of our competitiveness program, SETI is designing precise tools to assess assets and capabilities in the productive sector to determine paths towards higher value goods and services. As our flagship program for partnerships, the Americas Competitiveness Exchange on Innovation and Entrepreneurship, the OAS, will continue to leverage good practices and the power of networks to increase trade and investment in the region.
For us, the role of the OAS is very important, connecting countries, connecting governments and private sector, and letting us know what other countries are doing it and how we can replicate that in our countries to enhance development.
For me, who has come here to look at how can we develop our own ecosystem, our own innovation hubs, our own accelerators, I think seeing this, touching, feeling, seeing the transformation, seeing how quickly we made it happen, is a testament to what is possible. So I believe all of us leave here stronger than ever.
The Working Group of Experts on Subnational Competitiveness, the GTEX, is our gateway program to promote local economic competitiveness policies alongside municipal and state-level governments, together with the private sector and academia.
Este tipo de reuniones te sirven para darte cuenta de todo lo que se está viviendo en América Latina sobre los temas de competitividad. Y hoy justamente en este sector estamos viendo sobre todo los temas de innovación tecnológica, pues que si hablamos de competitividad tenemos que hablar de tecnología. Y me está ayudando mucho para abrir el panorama de ver lo que están haciendo otras ciudades y lo que podemos llegar a aplicar también nosotros en México.
The hub on the transfer and commercialization of technology is connecting and strengthening national innovation ecosystems in the region. Each edition of the hub trains budding technology entrepreneurs from the region's public and private sectors to take promising products and services from idea to market.
¿Por qué es importante que estemos juntos en esto? Porque la región tiene que estar unida y me parece que hay mucho conocimiento en la región que todavía no está explotado comercialmente como podría ser, y esta es la mejor manera de hacerlo.
Tenemos la proyección de cada año generar y compartir nuevas experiencias entre aquellos que contribuyen a la innovación. Queremos cambiar el cómo lo hemos estado haciendo en Latinoamérica. Queremos generar la unión de los países, queremos colaborar.
Our virtual platform on technology foresight, Prospecta Americas, will support OAS member states in identifying and mapping future trends and technological development of critical importance for the Americas.
Este esfuerzo, el cual viene siendo apoyado por la Organización de los Estados Americanos, nos permitirá tener una gran información para poder mapear estas iniciativas de innovación y poder que ellas contribuyan al crecimiento económico, a la competitividad y al bienestar de nuestras naciones.
Como bien sabemos, nos encontramos ya en la cuarta revolución industrial, la que está cambiando rápidamente la forma en que se hace negocios, se produce, se consume y se genera bienestar y entretenimiento en el mundo. Es la mayor amenaza, tal vez la mejor oportunidad que tenemos en nuestras naciones.
The Inter-American Teacher Education Network, the I-10, is working to improve the quality of teachers with an emphasis on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education. In 2019, the I-10 launched the first STEM Teacher Fellowship of the Americas. The Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas.
With your permission, Chair, we will have, as a result of what we've received, Antigua, Barbudas, Bahamas, Belize, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Dominica, Ecuador, Grenada, Guatemala, Guyana, Honduras, Jamaica, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Paraguay, the Dominican Republic, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad and Tobago, Uruguay, and Venezuela. We certainly have a quorum, Chair. That is the report. Thank you. But excuse me, Chair, you were on mute. Thank you. We hear you now. Thank you very much, Nestor. Appreciate that. Well, a very good morning to you all, distinguished representatives, permanent representatives, Service Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, members of the General Secretariat. As you see, we now have a quorum, and therefore I am pleased to open this meeting of the Permanent Council. And let me immediately extend our warm congratulations and all wishes for success in Peru for the second round of the elections that were held last Sunday. And Pedro Castillo is now elected president member for the period that will kick off 28th July. So congratulations to Peru. A few words in English.
Permanent Council to keep alert, because in the coming hours I will be sending you a series of technical reports related to the local COVID-19 issue in the DMV. This refers to matters that we request Her Excellency Ambassador Elisa Ruiz. Several countries had expressed their desire to return to face-to-face meetings, at least with regards to the Permanent Council. Consequently, I ask that you analyze this information in the next 15, 20 days, 21 days, I don't know, taking into account the Delta variant in order to evaluate the partial and gradual return to in-person meetings in the near future. The question will be when, and I do not see a better mechanism than to obtain the judgment of the Permanent Council in the coming days, given that it is the only rational and legitimate way that we are able to decide in a collective manner. It is highly unlikely that we will arrive to a consensus. However, I'm positive that we are able to reach a decision that will please a broad majority, and I believe that an agreement reached by a majority should solve this issue. As it is quite well known, the city is gradually coming back to in-person meeting, and it seems pertinent to take into account this objective information as well as the corresponding technical reports. Bien.
Very good, thank you. Let me now turn to another issue, and by way of information, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to express here the concern of some of you, and indeed of my own, with regard to the recent events that have arisen in Cuba. One might, I say might, consider that there exists the possibility, given these events, that the presence of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, Antonio Rejola, who has the technical report for 2020, and the specific commissioner that deals with Cuba, the rapporteur for Cuba, Eduardo Galón. He deals with other countries too, but specifically Cuba, and he has spoken on Twitter exhaustively. And then Pedro Vaca, of course, the rapporteur for freedom of expression. I'm not putting this forward as a debate, but by way of information, and to point out the fact that perhaps at a forthcoming special session, their reports might be of enormous usefulness. This is, let me underscore the fact, my personal opinion, which I simply share for such as might consider that pertinent. This is, of course, an issue that any particular step to be taken involving the people I've mentioned would have to be a decision taken collegially by us. The press communiques of the IACHR and the special rapporteurships have been very, very firm and very clear with regard to the repression and the use of force against the peaceful demonstrations that have been unfolding in Cuba over the last few days. I'm reading specifically to from a press community that speaks on this most especially, including the Rapporteurship of Freedom of Expression, who received independent reports on very vicious attacks on people. And the ISHR finally recalls that states must respect peaceful demonstrations in the construct that they do not therefore pose a threat to public order. So all of this might be a way forward. We have in the past used this sort of approach, and I wanted to give you, as it were, the heads up so that you all and this organization and this important body therein would be in the loop. Now, changing quite drastically and coming now to very practical terms. We now have 2 sessions in order not to generate additional funds, and we will hope to end at 12:30, and we will begin at 2 in the afternoon. Our regulation in Article 36, or 46, I should say, did say that there should be interventions of a maximum of 7 minutes, but we're now on 5. And so please, on that basis, I am putting to you the draft order of business, CPOD 2330/21. And if there are no remarks, let me give you a minute to see if you have any comments, but in the absence thereof, we consider the order of business approved. And let me immediately proceed to welcome the permanent representative of Belize, Ambassador Lynn Raymond Young. You are most welcome as the new representative for Belize here in the midst of this permanent council. You have already presented your letters of credence to the Secretary General. We know your country. I know your country very well, esteemed Ambassador. And I've taken a good look at your CV, which is most impressive, going through the West Indies universities, the University of Western Ontario. You have a stellar career in the private sector. You have headed up the topmost electricity company in your company. And so, Ambassador, I am very sure we will all derive enormous benefit and learning from you as you share with us your very considerable experience. But above all, it's a pleasure to have you with you, and I am pleased to give you the floor at this time.
So, many thanks. Let me turn off my audio. So, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So, many thanks, Chairman Washington Abdallah, Chair of the Permanent Council of the OAS, for your kind words. His Excellency Luis Almagro Lemes, Secretary General of the OAS, and His Excellency Nestor Mendes, Assistant Secretary General of the OAS, fellow permanent representatives of member states and observer states, as well as alternates. It is truly an honor and a privilege to represent my country, Belize, in this prestigious organization. The OAS has contributed significantly to the promotion of democracy, human rights, rule of law, and peace in our region. It has tirelessly strived to improve the economic and social well-being of the people of this hemisphere. So, let me reiterate Belize's commitment to the purposes and principles enshrined in the OAS Charter. We will continue to support the work of the OAS. These are exceedingly difficult times. We are grappling with a pandemic that has been particularly devastating in our hemisphere. And as might be expected, the economic and social consequences are straining the social fabric of many of our societies. Clearly then, the work of the OAS in supporting the post-pandemic recovery will be critical to the future of our democracies as we seek to build more inclusive and cohesive societies. I want to acknowledge the efforts of the OAS in supporting the people of Haiti in their struggle for peace, stability, and a better future. As Haiti tries to move forward following the heinous assassination of President Jovenel Moïse earlier this month, regional and international solidarity and support will be critical to assisting the Haitian people to achieve their aspirations. We know that democracy in our hemisphere is being tested. The ongoing challenges of insecurity, poverty, and inequality, and climate change have been exacerbated by the pandemic. Additionally, many of our countries are facing severe fiscal constraints, rise in poverty, hunger, and unemployment. In these most difficult of circumstances, our democracies must deliver development, provide opportunities, and a better life for our citizens. Naturally, the OAS has an important role to play as the guardian of the Inter-American Democratic Charter in promoting democratic governance. In so doing, though, this organization must always be transparent, constructive, just, and member state driven. Colleagues, Belize is a unique country. Our roots and identity are Caribbean, but we are firmly located in Central America. We have forged good, friendly, and strong relationships with all our neighbors. Our unique perspective, we believe, gives us the opportunity to play an especially important role, one that we readily embrace as a member of the OAS. As many of you know, Belize and Guatemala are seeking a peaceful and final resolution of Guatemala's claim to Belize at the International Court of Justice. The OAS has accompanied both countries in this process and continues to play a critical role in the implementation of confidence-building measures. Ours is a good example to the hemisphere of how difficult issues between states can be resolved peacefully with the support of multilateral institutions. Again, like many of you, we are gravely concerned about the impacts of climate change. Small island developing states such as ours bear the brunt of the impacts, though we have not contributed much to the causes of climate change. So in Belize, we are working with other small island developing states to demand more ambitious action to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases and mitigate, as well as adapt to the effects of climate change. We are also pushing for the provision of adequate financing to support developing countries in managing climate change. Hence, we are calling for urgent climate action at COP26. A significant portion of the membership of the OAS are small island developing states. Therefore, we think the OAS should have a significant and visible role to play in global efforts to combat climate change. We acknowledge the efforts of the OAS also in supporting member states to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. Our hemisphere is the worst impacted by the pandemic, yet we are behind in the rollout of vaccines. So we must urgently press on with initiatives to make more vaccines accessible and timely to our countries. And we ourselves must keep working at getting our people vaccinated as quickly as possible. Colleagues, Belize pledged its continued commitment to work with our member states to achieve the goals of peace and sustainable development for the well-being of all the peoples of the Americas. And we are happy to be able to contribute through a multilateral format, such as the OAS, which we believe is the only way to effectively confront the multiple challenges which our member states face. Again, let me thank you for the warm welcome, and I do look forward to meeting you all in person in a safe environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador. We appreciate your statement, and I'm pleased to offer the floor. I see the Ambassador for Antigua and Barbuda, Ronald Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, before I get into the substance of the item, which is the welcoming of the Belizean ambassador, May I join you in welcoming the new president of Peru, Pedro Castillo, who was elected by the will of the people of Peru. We wish his administration every success. Mr. Chairman, it's a great pleasure to welcome Lin Young as Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Belize to the councils of the Organization of American States and into our company. We have no doubt that he will enhance the contributions of the CARICOM group to the wider work that we undertake in our hemisphere. He comes ably qualified to help us deal efficiently and productively with finance and budgetary matters, since he has been actively involved in business and commercial activity. He comes directly from being the president and CEO of the Belize Electricity Company Limited, having served in many management capacities in the company through its various transitions since 1987. We have no doubt that given that background, his contributions will electrify the considerations of this permanent council. Ambassador Young also brings other strengths to this organization. In his academic training, he attended the University of the West Indies in Trinidad, where he earned his Bachelor's of Science degree before going on to read for his master's degree in business administration at the University of Western Ontario in Canada. Therefore, he straddles an understanding of his native Central America, the Caribbean, and Canada. His country, Belize, has been an active and productive member of the OAS. It is deeply committed to multilateralism and to peaceful settlements of disputes, even as it asserts its own sovereignty and territorial integrity. This is a tradition that Ambassador Young will undoubtedly continue. Ambassador Young, we are pleased to welcome you, and we look forward to working closely with you in advancing the interests of the people of our hemisphere, especially in advocating for equity and justice in the international community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ambassador Saunders. And I think your mention of electrifying is meant as a metaphor in the best possible sense. Ambassador Fernando Sotelo for Uruguay has the floor.
En nombre de los países del Grupo ALADI, deseamos darle una cordial bienvenida al representante permanente de Belice, embajador Lin Raymond Young. Embajador Young, esta organización enmarca su accionar en el diálogo, la negociación y la búsqueda de consenso, como elementos que nos condicionan en el trabajo cotidiano. Asimismo, es este un foro de hombres y mujeres de las Américas donde se fomenta el desarrollo y la promoción de una agenda regional hacia el cumplimiento del interés general. En tal sentido, sabemos que su experiencia y conocimientos contribuirán y serán de gran ayuda para el logro.
We know that your knowledge will be so important for attaining those objectives. In view of all the foregoing, the ALADI countries reiterate that we offer our willingness to establish a dialogue that will make it possible to attain purposes and strengthen the organization. In addition, Ambassador Young, we wish you the best of success in the performance of your functions. That is all, Chair.
Muy bien. Tiene la palabra la embajadora.
I now give the floor to the Ambassador of Guatemala, Rita Soler.
Presidente, es un honor tomar la palabra en nombre de las delegaciones de Belice, Costa Rica.
Yes. Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to speak here on behalf of all of SICA, all of the countries that are members of this Inter-American Center, Commission for Central America. A very warm welcome to His Excellency Lynn Raymond Young, the representative of Belize. And as has been pointed out, the ambassador brings a very solid academic set of credentials. He has worked at various levels, also in the public sector, as president and director of the Belize Electoral Company and the electric company, Becon. And we're talking about the most important electricity company, power company in Belize. He has been educated not only in Belize, but in Canada. He's also represented St. George's Cape. So, Mr. Chair, Belize is known for the stalwart support of a number of issues in this Permanent Council, and indeed in various other spaces in which we meet to confer in the organization. I am very certain that Belize will continue to support the leadership that Belize has always shown, as Ambassador Young indeed has already indicated. Mr. Chairman, through you, we wish Ambassador Young our warmest wishes for success and our pleasure in having him with us in this highest organ of the organization. Thank you.
Gracias. Tiene la palabra el embajador.
Thank you, Ambassador for Guatemala. The Ambassador for Canada, Hugh Adsett, has the floor.
ASG and Secretary General, pleasure to see you all this morning, and it's a delight to welcome Ambassador Young on behalf of Canada to the Organization of American States. Very happy that you're not only assuming your position as Belize's ambassador to the Organization of American States, but also as High Commissioner to Canada. You will be very busy, but we know already that you're extremely hardworking. As a former Honorary Consul of Canada to Belize, you have deep connections to Canada, and during that time that you were Honorary Consul, we know that you were able to help many Canadians in need, including during the pandemic. You'll bring undoubtedly that same commitment to helping others and to international cooperation to your work here at the Organization of American States. Ambassador, we're looking forward to working with you on the many files of importance to both of our countries here at the OAS and to continuing this important partnership in the years ahead. Welcome and thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Lucelena Barrio Rios has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This delegation wishes also to extend the warmest welcome to Ambassador Young. His very impressive curriculum, both professional and in the diplomatic service, will certainly contribute greatly to our work here. Mexico, of course, shares a border and shares friendship and great coincidence of views and a number of multilateral fora, including this one. All of this with our neighbor Belize. We have a solid history, and we will continue to strengthen it as we go. So you may be certain, Ambassador Young, that you can count on your neighbors in Mexico to stand with you and to welcome your input into so many important issues here, MAPOA, international human rights, health, education, culture, security, climate change, and the fight against poverty and corruption, to name but these. Thank you.
I note that Brad, Freedom of the United States has asked for the floor. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman, distinguished permanent representatives, Mr. Secretary General, ASG colleagues, friends. On behalf of the United States and the Biden-Harris administration, I would like to wish the warmest of welcomes to the new permanent representative of Belize, Ambassador Lynn Raymond Young. The United States maintains close relations with Belize, and we look forward to continuing our work together with His Excellency Ambassador Young on some of the region's most pertinent issues. I'm proud to share that the United States and Belize work closely together as partners to strengthen citizen security, prevent transnational crime, support economic growth, and increase good governance. The same goals that we all work together to achieve within the mandate of this organization. Ambassador Young's credentials are impeccable and demonstrate that he will be an immediate asset to this organization and will continue to foster strongly the relationship that Belize has with the member states of the OAS. We hope that soon we'll be able to welcome him in person at the OAS headquarters. Thank you very much.
Now allow me, before continuing with our order of business, to extend greetings. I would like to congratulate the people and government of Colombia for celebration of their National Day yesterday, July 20th. We extend this greeting to Ambassador Ordóñez as appropriate. So we reiterate the best wishes of success for the new representative of Belize. Welcome. Now, item 3, presentation of the annual report of the Pan American Health Organization to the General Assembly in its 51st regular session. I'm pleased to offer the floor to Dr. Carissa Etienne, Director of PAHO, to present the annual report of this organization, which has been distributed as document CP Doc 5683/21. Dr. Etienne is accompanied this morning by Mary Lou Valdez, who is a Deputy Director, of Dr. Yarbas Barbosa, who is known to all of us, Deputy Director of the organization, Mary Leos, who is Chief of Staff, and Dr. Ciro Ugarte, who's Director of the Health Emergencies Department. You are all welcome. And Dr. Etienne, you have the floor. Thank you very much.
Ambassador Washington Abdallah, Vice Chair of the General Committee and Permanent Representative of Uruguay to the Organization of American States, Excellencies, Ambassadors, Permanent Representatives, and Permanent Observers, Your Excellency, Secretary General Luis Almagro, Your Excellency, Assistant Secretary General Nestor Mendez, secretaries, directors, and other professionals of the Organization of the American States, esteemed colleagues, and invited guests. A very good morning to you all. I am very pleased to share with you the 2020 annual report of the Pan American Health Organization, which reflects our technical cooperation achievements in the region of the Americas during a year of unprecedented challenges. When I delivered my 2019 report, COVID-19 was not part of that presentation, as we had only recorded the first case in our region on January 20th, 2020. However, I did reassure you then that PAHO was working assiduously to assist your ministries of health in preparing for and responding to this pandemic. And I further called on our experts and partners to take early action. This 2020 report will focus primarily on the organization's actions to help countries prepare for and control the COVID-19 pandemic. Your Excellencies, I wish to reiterate that we continue to seek your steady leadership and unstinting support, even at this time, as COVID-19 challenges persist for all countries of the Americas region, and solidarity is needed now more than ever. As of December 2020, COVID-19 had affected 216 countries and territories globally, resulting in more than 80 million cases and 1.7 million deaths. In our region, over the same period, the pandemic had swept through every country and territory by the end of 2020, infecting more than 35 million people and causing around 850,000 deaths. The region of the Americas has been and remains an epicenter of the pandemic. As in other regions, persons at increased risk of severe illness and death due to COVID-19 included older individuals, those with non-communicable diseases, and or certain underlying health conditions. As of July 20, 2021, more than 75 million cases have been confirmed in our region, and the death toll has regrettably reached just under 2 million. The COVID-19 pandemic has also exacerbated long-standing inequities within and among countries. Because some of the most dramatic wealth disparities in the world are observed in the Americas, COVID-19 has exposed the vulnerabilities of our countries across the health, economic, and social sectors, as well as heightened disparities by gender, ethnicity, geographic location, access to quality and affordable health services, food insecurity, and housing. Together, we must continue protecting the health and well-being of all peoples during the COVID-19 pandemic, even while we recognize the tremendous fiscal, economic, and social protection challenges faced by all countries as they struggle to meet the colossal demands generated by this pandemic. When the first cases were reported in our region in January 2020, PAHO immediately activated its incident management system teams at the regional level and in every country office. These teams provided direct emergency assistance to ministries of health and other national authorities in the areas of surveillance, laboratory diagnostic capacity, healthcare services, infection prevention and control, clinical management, and risk communication. Early in the pandemic, PAHO planned and implemented the deployment of personnel and supplies to strengthen the capacity of national health systems and frontline healthcare workers. PAHO also supported the design and activation of national emergency plans, providing personal protective equipment or PPEs, and developing the necessary technical guidelines for national efforts to mitigate the impacts of the pandemic. I would like to assure you that these efforts continue today. Between February and March 2020, laboratory training workshops were organized in Brazil for 9 South American countries and in Mexico for 7 Central American and Caribbean countries. PAHO dispatched laboratory experts as well as specialists in clinical management, infection prevention and control, and the reorganization of health services to a number of countries and territories to support the national response efforts. Additionally, experts on the implementation of Go.Data, which is a digital contact tracing platform, were deployed to support many countries, including Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico, with their contact tracing initiatives. One of the most challenging aspects of the response at the regional level was in achieving inter- and intra-country coordination in ways that enabled all member states to respond in a timely manner and with the highest quality possible within a context of rapidly evolving evidence and information. Despite the existence of considerable misinformation and premature conclusions regarding what worked and what did not work to contain and mitigate the virus during the early days, PAHO strengthened its regional database of health technology assessments for the Americas, then known as BRISA. There are now over 312 reports tabled in our COVID-19 section. Currently, PAHO's virtual health library contains a window of knowledge on COVID-19, and health professionals can access up-to-date technical and scientific materials through PAHO's different portals and repositories. As of December 2020, more than 277,000 users had accessed these critical information resources. PAHO has also collaborated with 24 national regulatory agencies across the Americas to share recommendations and evaluations on approved, efficacious, safe, and high-quality products that could be used to manage COVID-19. As the global scientific community raced to identify and assess the efficacy of potential therapeutics, PAHO reviewed findings from over 1,700 clinical trials and 70 therapeutic options to support health authorities in their evidence-based decisions for patient care. As a result, the therapeutic options have been summarized, providing health authorities with timely synthesis of evidence to ensure that populations have access to recommended, effective, and safe interventions. Given that we were navigating through uncharted territory with this pandemic, national healthcare teams required additional training to build certain skills and competencies. In response, PAHO conducted over 250 in-person and virtual training sessions on topics such as prevention, testing, contact tracing, and standards of care. We developed, adapted, and translated more than 110 technical documents and tools for use in the Americas. To increase preparedness and effectiveness, PAHO supported the development of COVID-19 modeling, which projected how epidemiological trends could evolve as the virus spread across the Americas, and we made these models available to our member states. In addition, PAHO supported the strengthening and installation of SARS-CoV-2 virus laboratory diagnostic capacities in 35 countries and territories. The organization also purchased and distributed laboratory reagents, PPEs, and medical supplies and equipment to 38 countries and territories. The Bureau successfully mobilized over US $263 million from key donors and partners, including international and governmental agencies, individuals, and nonprofits, to fund its COVID-19 technical cooperation requirements and to provide supplies for the fight against COVID-19 in the Americas. This amount included direct financial support to PAHO, contributions channels through WHO, and agreements with PAHO member states with support from a range of international financial institutions. Despite lockdowns and border closing, PAHO was able to effectively help countries with logistics and transportation. Disaster response and epidemic alert teams collected, prioritized, and shipped much-needed supplies to countries. By the end of 2020, PAHO had delivered to 34 countries and territories of the Americas 667 tons of protective equipment and diagnostic supplies, including nearly 6.38 million pairs of gloves, 366,000 goggles, more than 1.9 million protective gowns, over 3.3 million face shields, and almost 37 million respirators and N95 surgical masks. We also donated and delivered over 8 million SARS-CoV-2 PCR tests and 1 million antigen-based tests. Because contact tracing is critical for monitoring and controlling the spread of the virus, PAHO trained health workers in 31 countries and territories in the Go.Data application in collaboration with the Global Outbreak Alert and Response Network, the GOAN. This application supports the investigation and management of suspect COVID-19 cases, displaying transmission chains, and facilitating contact tracing. Given the evolving COVID-19 virus mutations, PAHO has worked to establish a regional genomic surveillance network to monitor coronavirus variants in our populations. This type of surveillance will enhance countries' capacities to reorient or to adjust their public health control and prevention measures. Within the access to the COVID-19 tools, the ACT Accelerator, Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, CEPI, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Information, and WHO, together with multinational and developing country vaccine manufacturers, launched the COVAX facility in 2020. This facility sought to provide governments with the opportunity to benefit from a large portfolio of COVID-19 candidate vaccines using a range of technology platforms and produced by manufacturers across the world, thus hoping to guarantee a bigger market to provide security of demand, often with greater scope than individual governments or regional groups could support on their own. The COVAX facility was therefore envisaged as a global risk-sharing mechanism for pooled procurement and equitable distribution of eventual COVID-19 vaccines. PAHO's revolving fund for vaccines is supporting access to COVID-19 vaccines from the COVAX facility for the region of the Americas, while UNICEF is facilitating access for the other WHO regions. Globally, 187 countries and territories are now participating in the COVAX facility, and these countries fall into two categories, namely the self-financing countries and territories, of which there are 27 in our region, and countries eligible for advanced market commitment support, of which there are 10 in our region. The 27 self-financing countries and territories in our region have signed commitment agreements with Gavi and have already met the COVAX facility's financial requirements, an allocation of more than 1.1 billion in down payments and financial guarantees. I must emphasize, however, that regardless of AMC eligibility or self-financing status, PAHO views all participating countries and territories as one group, united together in solidarity and purpose. So to that end, the PAHO Secretariat convened a special session of the Regional Committee of WHO for the Americas on December 10, 2020. Member states adopted a resolution recognizing PAHO and the Revolving Fund as the Pan-American Technical Cooperation Mechanism most suitable for providing equitable access to COVID vaccines throughout the region. The resolution also called for member states to actively participate in the COVAX facility and to advocate for solidarity, affordable pricing, and equitable allocations. Your Excellencies, I wish to appeal to all of you ambassadors to help us to preserve and maintain the Revolving Fund as a regional public good. For more than 40 years, PAHO's Revolving Fund for Vaccines has built a sturdy collaboration with our member states, providing robust support in facilitating their access to efficacious, safe, quality, and affordable vaccines, and with the implementation of their national immunization campaigns. Our work to increase the visibility of our region within the global scenario of this pandemic has been unceasing. On behalf of the organization, I, together with our Assistant Director, as well as other senior PAHO staff, have been utilizing our weekly press briefings, my participation in WHO's Global Policy Group meetings, our engagement with ECLAC, the international finance institutions, and other agencies, and my meetings with key extra-regional personalities and numerous others, to emphasize that the Americas has been and continues to be at the epicenter of this outbreak, and to advocate for enhanced vaccine allocations from the COVAX facility based on the epidemiological realities in the Americas. Although our COVID-19 pandemic response demanded our full attention and focus, as well as a significant injection of financial and human resources, the organization simultaneously had to pursue vigorous efforts to fulfill some of our other strategic goals and commitments for 2020. We quickly regrouped and planned different modalities via which to deliver our technical cooperation, especially for those critical high priority public health programs. For example, non-communicable diseases, and this is an area which has been a key focus of our work, and that became even more critical within the context of COVID-19. Epidemiological and scientific data have demonstrated the increased likelihood of mortality from COVID-19 infections among those with non-communicable chronic diseases. And we are keenly aware that appropriate screening, diagnosis, and treatment services for NCDs have been delayed due to the prolonged lockdowns and the disruptions in health services. To estimate the population at increased risk of severe COVID-19 disease due to underlying health conditions, and to help countries plan their health services during this critical time, PAHO developed a regional modeling tool. This tool revealed that 325 million people in the Americas were at risk, increased risk of experiencing severe COVID-19 illness due to NCDs and or their risk factors. PAHO provided information and guidance to the public and established a dedicated web page for NCDs and COVID-19. Additionally, 2,500 health professionals working on NCD prevention and nutrition across our region completed introductory social marketing courses addressing NCD risk factors and COVID-19. As you may be aware, the monumental challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic have generated a substantial upsurge in the reported incidence of depression and anxiety in our region. PAHO supported 27 countries to meet the increased demands for essential mental health and psychosocial support services through the establishment of a multi-sectoral coordination platform as part of their COVID-19 national response. We further supported countries to train their health workers at the primary care level on the management of mental health conditions. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the mental health of populations and mental health services in the region has been profound and is likely to persist and be felt long after the pandemic recedes. Once again, I would like to underscore that political leadership, together with significant investments in health financing and human resources, will be needed to address the mental health gaps. Additionally, the whole of society approaches will be required to establish comprehensive multi-sectoral mental health responses during the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. To respond to the rise in domestic violence reported during the COVID-19 pandemic, PAHO intensified its technical cooperation to 7 countries with the aim of improving the health sector's response. Efforts included strengthening the policy dialogue with governments and partners on how to better identify and reach victims of abuse, and enhancing the training of health and helpline workers to better address these challenges. In terms of tobacco control, 3 countries, Bolivia, St. Lucia, and Paraguay, adopted smoke-free regulations aligned with the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, bringing the number of countries and territories with smoke-free regulations within the region up to 23. In addition, Mexico introduced a ban on electronic cigarettes, while Peru adopted an automatic indexation of its excise tax on tobacco products, and Trinidad and Tobago increased excise taxes on tobacco products. Regarding our work in the area of nutrition, Mexico joins 3 countries in the region, Chile, Ecuador, and Peru, in implementing a strategy to discourage the consumption of processed or ultra-processed products through front-of-package warning labels, while Uruguay will join the group this year. In 2020, PAHO continued to pursue its ambitious communicable disease elimination agenda, including the eradication of neglected infectious diseases such as onchocerciasis, filariasis, trachoma, human rabies, leprosy, and vector-borne Chagas disease. In addition, the Master Plan for HIV, TB, and Malaria, developed in 2018, continues to represent a blueprint for our HIV and TB responses. The Global Fund provided $6 million to PAHO's strategic fund for the procurement and distribution of antiretroviral medicines, saving the lives of over 45,000 persons living with HIV in Venezuela. Between April and December, all countries in the region benefited from virtual monthly meetings during which we discussed the latest guidelines on TB and COVID-19 and updated WHO TB guidelines. With PAHO's technical support, 9 countries and territories have committed to moving forward in strengthening access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene services, better known as WASH, in healthcare facilities. The European Union and the Green Climate Fund provided financial support to Argentina and 12 English-speaking Caribbean countries and territories to prepare and launch health chapters within their national climate change adaptation plans. In February 2021, we reached a significant public health milestone on our elimination agenda. And in this regard, I would like to publicly congratulate El Salvador for achieving WHO's certification of the elimination of malaria, a disease which for many years had caused unspeakable suffering and death, particularly among the most vulnerable populations in that country. I would also like to recognize the combined efforts of all sectors of society, the government of El Salvador, and especially the thousands of health workers and volunteers who have toiled for more than 50 years to eliminate malaria. I certainly hope that this achievement will be a real inspiration for other countries in Central America and in the region to continue the fight against this disease. Eliminating malaria is possible, and it is the right path forward. Through our elimination initiative, PAHO will continue supporting the countries of the region with the elimination of other diseases, as we have done with malaria. Besides the technical cooperation provided to countries for making their health systems and services more integrated and effective, PAHO reinforced its support to all countries and territories for the reorganization of health services in order to respond to the pandemic. Over 632,000 health professionals from 35 countries and territories in the region had taken COVID-19 courses in our virtual campus of public health in 2020. PAHO and ECLA collaborated to issue a joint report on the need to control the pandemic to enable safe reopening of the economy within the context of COVID-19. And this report called upon states to demonstrate effective and dynamic leadership and stewardship through national plans that incorporate health, economic, and social policies. We also launched the renewal process for the essential public health functions to strengthen critical capacities and received critical inputs from 10 countries and more than 20 national institutes of public health and universities throughout the region. To help strengthen national regulatory agencies within the context of COVID-19, PAHO conducted 124 quality assurance evaluations to facilitate the procurement of 78 products on behalf of member states and supported quality assurance processes for the regional procurement of medicines and medical devices, including PPEs and biomedical equipment. As of 2020, the Caribbean regulatory system issued 71 product recommendations to its member states, including its first orphan drug for the rare disease neuromyelitis optica and 2 diagnostic test kits for COVID-19. While COVID-19 vaccination is an urgent and vital priority for the region, PAHO has continued to maintain a concerted focus on all immunization efforts in order to avoid the reemergence of those high-priority vaccine-preventable diseases, especially those for which eradication or elimination of indigenous transmission has already been achieved in this region. For example, in 2020, our region celebrated 26 years free of wild poliovirus circulation. But we must all recognize the critical importance of protecting and sustaining such public health gains, as the opportunity cost to control any of these re-emerging outbreaks in the future will be prohibitive. During the year under review, 2020, 13 countries made use of the observance of Vaccination Week in the Americas to vaccinate against influenza in order to avoid a potential double burden of respiratory illness due to the co-circulation of COVID-19 and influenza viruses. This vaccination initiative, which prioritized healthcare workers, older adults, and persons with chronic illness, reached more than 100 million people in this region. 10 countries vaccinated more than 250,000 children and adults against measles, and several countries and territories enhanced their polio and HPV vaccination campaigns. Additionally, in 2020, 13 countries and territories in the region, including the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, succeeded in stopping measles virus transmission. To increase readiness for the deployment of COVID-19 vaccines, PAHO supported 20 countries and territories in evaluating their national cold chain capacities and in updating their cold chain equipment and transportation inventories. And finally, PAHO worked with countries and territories in our region to upgrade their perinatal surveillance mechanisms, developing a perinatal information system for the surveillance of women and newborns with COVID and maternal mortality due to COVID. PAHO strengthened our already close alliance and collaboration with the OAS by convening ambassadorial briefings on COVID-19, as well as through our participation in your joint summit working group meetings. In this context, we were pleased to facilitate the discussion on pandemic response and resilience, which is one of the priority topics identified for the 9th Summit of the Americas in 2022. We've also engaged actively with member states, presidents, and prime ministers via a variety of different fora, including meetings of the regional integration mechanisms. With Secretary General Luis Almagro, I had the honor of representing in the Joint Summit Working Group meetings as a platform to update members on the regional COVID-19 response and as a safe space to share information with the Inter-American System agencies, including the development banks and international organizations such as OECD, ECLAC, UNDP, OIM, and others. These meetings have revealed that the multilateral system and its agencies are much more capable of responding to member states' needs when we act together and in a coordinated manner. I believe that this message needs to be reinforced now more than ever. With the OAS, PAHO helped to establish permanent coordination mechanisms and high-level agreements between the education and health sectors to better align education policies with current and future needs of health systems. As part of its agreement with the OAS, PAHO developed a virtual course for Haiti entitled Health Systems Preparedness During Crisis Situations, in collaboration with the Galilee International Management Institute and the Haiti Ministry of Public Health and Population. Further, PAHO continued its collaboration with strategic partners, including the Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commission, CICAD, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, and national drug authorities to strengthen country capacities for the formulation of drug policies with a public health perspective and orientation. In Argentina, in collaboration with the National Secretariat for Integrated Policies on Drugs, local intersectoral plans were developed and approved by several provinces to integrate the prevention and treatment of substance abuse disorders into the public health services network. Together with CICAD, we supported national task forces in St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, and Trinidad and Tobago with the formulation and updating of their national drug policies. Direct technical cooperation was undertaken with 11 countries and territories, validating quality standards and developing a roadmap for establishing program accreditation systems. In these complex times, Excellencies, PAHO is immensely grateful to you and all our partners who have made it possible for us to assist countries in the Americas as they battle this deadly pandemic. We are aware that there are enormous challenges still ahead, which will require steadfast leadership, much resources, and an unwavering demonstration of solidarity. We will continue to be a strong advocate every day on behalf of the people of the Americas. We will work unremittingly with our countries and territories to ensure that COVID-19 vaccines are successfully delivered into the arms of over 465 million people in 2021, while we continue our support to limit transmission, reduce mortality, and to provide essential health services. Significant and sustained interventions by countries are essential to suppress COVID-19, to tackle increasing poverty levels, and to reduce the health and social inequalities that are worsening throughout the region. Nonetheless, while the pandemic has demonstrated the devastating societal and economic impacts of an emerging widespread threat to health, it has also shown that in collaboration with partners, we can efficiently adapt, innovate, and improve interventions that benefit the peoples of the Americas. PAHO will continue to reinforce the inextricable linkages between health and the economy, and to ensure that resilient health systems and essential public health functions remain at the center of equitable and sustainable national development. Before closing, I would like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to all health workers in the Americas for their sterling work, their unstinting dedication, and their unwavering commitment during this most unprecedented health crisis in our history. They have
Muchas gracias, doctor.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Etienne. We greatly appreciate your very thorough presentation and deeply moving, might I add, when you have explained so eloquently and so sincerely the role of the frontline health workers. I express here the view of everyone. We are deeply touched and we agree with you. Well, dear colleagues, we do have a special session of the Permanent Council this afternoon, as you know, where, amongst other points, we will be significantly homing in on the role of vaccination. I beg you to be so kind when you intervene now to please speak to the whole of the report that Dr. Etienne has shared with us, and not only on the vaccination, which we will be drilling down on this afternoon. And so, I'm looking to see who's up. The ambassador for Costa Rica, Ambassador Alejandro Sola. You have the floor, madam. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and very good morning to all of you, permanent and alternate representatives, Distinguished Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, esteemed Dr. Carissa Etienne, Director General of the Pan American Health Organization. A very warm welcome to you. We're delighted to have you amongst us. And we're deeply grateful to you for this annual report that you have put before us, which focuses, as you have focused, on the question of saving lives. We understand the very constructive focus you have put on the very dedicated action of everybody in your office and the whole of the PAHO staff to work against all of the issues that PAHO puts before it, including non-communicable diseases, mental health, amongst many, many others. I'd like to focus specifically on building up capacity with regard to the mental health issue. Costa Rica is very, very much a believer in that mental health is health. It is fundamental to the well-being of every person. The technical office is interrupting. You must have another audio on in your room. There's terrific feedback. The interpreter regrets that help because it was difficult as well. Well, I'm going to move forward, and please interrupt as and when you need. The ambassador continues. Costa Rica focuses on the importance of mental health from the standpoint that it is essential to the well-being of the individual and the fulfillment of every individual's capacities. Now, that mental health can be impaired, as we know, by a number of socioeconomic elements that must, we believe, be looked at in a multi-sectoral standpoint: prevention, treatment, recovery as needed. Costa Rica has participated in looking at the role of attention to fighting suicide and therefore better understanding the mental issues involved in emergency situations. And that, of course, was also part of the COVID-19 mobilization. Now, Chair, we must also remember when we think of mental health of the gender issue and that particular factor, which, as we know, weighs on the position of women, girls, and little girls in terms of their ability to aspire to well-being and equality, their socialization, the common discrimination based on gender, which can be direct or indirect in so many ways, as we know, must also be looked at. And we need to look to see how in the various news bulletins and our approach to COVID-19, we guard against that as well. And naturally, that has to be a regional-wide concern. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ambassador, says the chair. Sir Ronald Sanders, Ambassador for Antigua and Barbuda, you have the floor, sir.
Está en mute, embajador.
You're on mute. I apologize. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, my first word must be thanks. Thanks to the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, for the efficiency and dedication with which it has responded to the challenges faced by Latin American and Caribbean countries during this epoch of the COVID-19 pandemic. The countries of the Caribbean were greatly aided by the guidance provided by PAHO experts and by the medical equipment that the organization supplied, not only to us, but to many countries in Latin America as well. In truth, the majority of our countries were ill prepared for a pandemic of any kind, let alone one that moved with the swiftness and deadly impact of COVID-19. The figures given by Dr. Etienne this morning underscore the unpreparedness of all of our countries for the pandemic. 75 million cases in our hemisphere and 2 million deaths are frightening figures and evidences the fact that our region was one of the most affected in the world. That is why the Caribbean would support the call by Dr. Etienne this morning to preserve and enhance the PAHO revolving fund. It seems clear that COVID-19 is not the last pandemic the world will face. Others will follow. Therefore, the world should be prepared, including the member states of this organization, for the impact of yet another pandemic. Alarmingly, even as we worry about any new pandemics in the future, we are still very much trapped in the net of COVID-19 now. While progress has undoubtedly been made in the production of a number of vaccines that can help to suppress and contain the virus, much of the world, including many countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, remain deprived of much needed vaccines. We continue to be deeply concerned about the supply of vaccines from the pharmaceutical companies. The scaling up of production that we had requested in a resolution passed by the Organization of American States has not yet materialized. In negotiations with major suppliers, we have been informed that no supply of vaccines will be available before January of 2022 because the existing stocks and present production have already been purchased by a few wealthy countries. There continues to exist, Mr. Chairman, discrimination and inequity in supply and distribution of vaccines. This phenomenon continues to plague our nations, and it must be addressed by all of us if we are to achieve a world that is safe, because we are all safe. I will conclude these preliminary remarks on the PAHO report, Mr. Chairman, by thanking the countries that have provided funds to PAHO to help meet its obligations. I don't want to start cherry-picking countries for fear of upsetting people, but I do wish to remark on the contribution of $50 million by Canadian dollars by Canada and the contributions of the United States to PAHO to allow it to continue to function as efficiently as it did through this crisis. Mr. Chairman, I end by again thanking Dr. Etienne for the report, and I hope in time we will have to discuss fully all of the aspects of it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Gracias, embajador.
Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador. Ambassador Hugh Adsett of Canada is next.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président, et je commencerai avec quelques mots en français.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to begin with a few words in French and then I'll switch to English. I want to begin by expressing my warm gratitude to Dr. Carissa Etienne for her stellar report. Canada holds firmly the importance of equity and transparency in terms of well-being of the peoples of the Americas. We have, over the past year, been deeply grateful for the inestimable support that PAHO has offered, particularly in its assistance to policies of a migratory and immigration nature in facing the COVID-19 pandemic. We here are the epicenter of this epidemic, we here in the Americas, and that only underscores the absolutely visceral role that PAHO must continue to play to assist us in stepping up to this challenge in the Americas. Now, the important themes that Dr. Etienne has underscored, which has to do with upholding and building on well-being here, has to be our own mantra as we collectively continue to fight hard with the challenges of this pandemic.
This has been an unprecedented test for us all, and it continues to demand resilience from every one of us. We'd like to express our solidarity with fellow member states during this very difficult time, and Canada remains committed to robust global collaboration to end the acute phase of COVID-19 and to address the devastating effects it's had worldwide. We recognize the COVID-19 crisis constitutes a health, social, and economic emergency, and it's served to further exacerbate existing inequities in our region. It's important that we acknowledge and address the disproportionate impacts that COVID-19 has had on women, children, and populations in situations of vulnerability. Given that this pandemic has had and will continue to have far-reaching impacts beyond the health sector, the importance of an intersectoral approach to the COVID-19 response and recovery cannot be overstated. The report that we heard from this morning sheds insight on how the pandemic has disrupted routine health promotion and disease prevention control programs, as well as the provision of health services in our region. It's critically important that we all, as a region, work to protect the health gains that have been made to date in the Americas. And this is a point that Dr. Etienne noted in her presentation this morning. As we look to make the shift from response to recovery, it's also imperative that we build on the lessons that we've learned from the pandemic. This is something that we'll continue to work with PAHO and with all of you on in the coming weeks and months. And let me just, as a final comment, join Dr. Etienne, and I'm sure in others as well, and also paying tribute to the significant contributions of healthcare workers over the past year and a half. This has been a time of great difficulty for all of us, and we would not have managed the situation the way that we had without the tremendous commitments that all of them have made. Thank you, Mr. President.
Gracias, Hugh. Señor.
Thank you very much, Hugh. Don Felipe Say of Chile has the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me begin by expressing our gratitude to the excellent report of Dr. Carissa Etienne and to underscore her important leadership of PAHO in the tremendous challenge we all face today. We are deeply blessed to have a terrific representation of PAHO in Chile that has had an important role in the Chilean strategy, which we call step by step, paso a paso, and in spotting the outcrops of diseases. Our country is very pleased at the study on the antiseptic angle of COVID-19 provisions, vaccine provisions, I should say, where the effectiveness of the vaccines will be looked at in the subpopulations of the region. Now, we take this opportunity to reiterate our gratitude sincerely to PAHO in this pandemic and to assure Dr. Etienne of the stalwart support of Chile standing by you in crafting a better and stronger response even yet as we move forward. Thank you. The chair is muted. The interpreter regrets. Can't hear him. Terribly sorry. Chairman is not yet realizing that he's been speaking in a closed mic. Sorry. Still, I think he's beginning to get it, but he hasn't yet. Your microphone is muted, Chair. Ah, I get it now. Thanks very much. I think we're all set. I'm terribly sorry, says the chairman. Well, as you can imagine, I was looking to see who was next, right? And next is Honduras, so please go ahead. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My delegation wants very briefly to join with others in congratulations to Dr. Carissa Etienne and the entire PAHO organization for this 2020 report. It highlights the technical support that has been put to us between July 2019 or June 2019 to July 2020. We understand how important this is within the framework of the 2014-2019 framework that came before. We know that OAS is one of the most inequitable regions in the world, and COVID hasn't helped. Indeed, it has deepened these inequities, as has been repeatedly pointed out. And yet, through it all, PAHO was absolutely steadfast in its support to all of us, and we could not be more grateful. A special shout out to the mechanism of assistance to us, the COVAX method, United States, Canada, Mexico, and others too, who have bent over backward to help us have access to those vaccines. Honduras has a national plan to fight against COVID-19, and we have followed the recommendations of PAHO to immunize our population as best as possible. President Orlando Fernandez has said repeatedly that vaccination is the way to go, and it is a necessary means by which the yawning gap between the haves and the have-nots might begin to be closed. And so we join in the call to others to please help us make the distribution of the vaccine in the region more equitable. Thank you. No, thank you, madam, says the chair. El Salvador, you have the floor. Thank you very much, and greetings to all. The delegation of El Salvador joins in celebrating the fact that, first of all, we've got this item on our agenda today. And we are delighted to have heard Dr. Carissa Etienne, Director of PAHO, for the very thorough annual report that she has regaled us with here, and duly highlighting the tremendous challenges that PAHO is facing, as we all face, but as the Director pointed out, that has really, really called for an extra oomph of solidarity and effectiveness. The professionalism and the commitment of PAHO to the people of these Americas is absolutely clear. And we are especially thankful for the technical cooperation that PAHO has been offering and continues to offer in our own national plans to build responses and a solid response to COVID. The government of President Nayib Bukele has helped avoid the unnecessary contact. We have very much stressed distancing, and aside from other preventive measures that the government has taken in order to prevent spread of the virus, El Salvador is especially highlighting these because we feel that it has made a difference to the relatively low level of contagion. 6 million and some vaccines have been received in 19 different lots, of which 7 are from AstraZeneca, 6 from Sinovac, 5 from Pfizer, and 1 from Moderna. And so El Salvador turns out to be one of the countries in the region with the greatest number of people vaccinated. Thanks very much to COVAX. And again, thanks to the backstopping of PAHO. So we are pleased by that. But as our annual report says here, saving lives, improving health and welfare, that is a high aspiration that clearly won't just happen. It is important that this cross-cutting and multi-sectoral approach continue. And that, of course, will have to rest on increased mutual cooperation. We are very grateful, as Dr. Etienne herself has pointed out, very grateful for the support that we got from PAHO to eliminate malaria. Now, this is case in point as to what you can do when you come together and really focus on the task. Now, finally, El Salvador reiterates its overwhelming support for PAHO and every part of its activities, and are very grateful truly for the report, which highlights yet again how much we value our common work. Thank you. The Ambassador of Ecuador, Carlos Játiva, has the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. The delegation of Ecuador is grateful for the 2020 report from the Pan American Health Organization, which has been presented by its director, Dr. Carissa Etienne, who I extend warm greetings to. And I also salute her great leadership during this period, and likewise her competent staff, beginning with Barbosa, based on equity, excellence, solidarity, and so on, the values of PAHO. The document reflects the permanent and persevering attitude of the organization when it comes to seeking universal health and the reduction of disparities. Likewise, it describes cooperation technical assistance activities to the member states in any number of areas, particularly to fight COVID-19. The information and figures provided on the pandemic evidence the extraordinarily difficult circumstances that we have experienced in this hemisphere as one of the epicenters of the crisis, as Dr. Etienne described it. It also reveals the situation of many health systems, the weaknesses prior to, and the economic and political impacts that have aggravated inequities in this, the most unequal region of the planet. Despite the complex picture described, there's a future of hope directed to the states with a view to establishing health and at the same time to contribute to reactivating the economies of our nations, and guided also always by that Pan-American spirit. With the sector's actions, with gender and other inclusivity, making it possible to have cooperation between the public and private sectors and civil society on the multilateral level. The idea is to mobilize with other countries in solidarity to address a problem that does not recognize borders. As Director Etienne has recognized, health is a fundamental human right, essential for the well-being of the peoples and economies of the Americas and for the sustainable development of the region. The President of Ecuador, Guillermo Lasso, fully agrees with this approach. From the first day of his presidency, he entrusted the Vice President, Correro, with coordinating public policies to shore up the national health system. And he also trusted the representatives of Ecuador before the competent international organizations, including Pan American Health Organization, the Andean Community, and others, on securing protection for the lives of Ecuadorians. We have lost the ambassador. We have lost the ambassador. Let's see if we get him back.
Salió por completo de la sala, no lo veo aún conectado.
It appears that he has left the room completely. I don't see him connected. No, neither do I. Well, what we could do is, before some final points, allow me to say that the chair is going to suggest that the Permanent Council take note of the presentation of the PAHO annual report offered by Dr. Etienne, as well as the observations and recommendations of the member states which will be transmitted to the General Assembly at its next regular session, this in keeping with Article 91 of the Charter. I don't think there'll be any objections. And so that is agreed. Now, before giving the floor to the Secretary General, excuse me, we have Ambassador Hativa once again. Okay, go ahead, Ambassador. We're reconnecting with you. Are you there? You must have telepathy, Mendez. I don't see him. Yes, I've recognized him. He's about to enter. Apologies, Chair. We've had technical difficulties. Let me just say that President of Ecuador, Guillermo Lasso, fully agrees with what the director has said about health is not a privilege, rather it's a fundamental human right. And because of this, from the first day of his presidency, he entrusted the Vice President of the Republic with coordinating public policies to shore up the national health system, and also entrusted him with representation of Ecuador before competent international organizations such as WHO, and the relevant Andean Community Organization. One of the actions that Vice President Olvero is coordinating is COVID-19 control efforts, whose first stage is to have 9 million citizens inoculated in the first 100 days of its administration. This will be addressed by the Vice President himself in the special session that we're having this afternoon, so I won't go on any further. My country values the work of PAHO for getting us vaccines through COVAX. Thousands of doses have been provided, and more will be coming in coming months. In addition, there will be a discussion on elections in COVID-19, which helped assure elections would be held with collective and individual biosecurity safety measures. Similarly, the agreement, or Ecuador, highlights the delivery of PPE, medicines, and medical supplies provided by PAHO to the Ministry of Health during the pandemic, and likewise collaboration to review technical documentation prior to purchasing health materials and to train brigades which have deployed to hard-to-access places to benefit population, including the disabled, the elderly, children, and others. Thank you very much, Chair. The interpreter notes that the sound was poor for the Ecuadorian ambassador, making it impossible to provide full interpretation. What I'd like to say off script to Dr. Etienne is a word of gratitude, because we all know when there is a public servant who is clearly involved in a task in such dramatic moments, and with proliferating challenges. Also, my gratitude to Barbosa, who's always been ready at any point in time, has always been there for us states. So I think I speak on behalf of the entire Council in expressing these sincere words of gratitude. Secretary General, you have the floor. The interpreter notes that the Secretary General continues to be muted.
Comprehensive report. We should all be very grateful for your work and your achievements, the work of PAHO and its achievements. You have been doing a lot during these pandemic days, in spite sometimes of lack of resources. I think we should be very clear that PAHO needs additional financial resources, and that is very important to fulfill its duties. Your work has been excellent. and your solutions all around the hemisphere has been great. I admire the work of PAHO and the work of the people working in the health system, and I admire your work, Carissa, more and more every day. Thank you very much.
Carissa, would you like to add a footnote, or is that enough? I would like to say thank you very much to everyone and for valuing the work of PAHO. It's not just me, it's the full staff of PAHO. So thank you very much for your support as well. Thank you. Thank you very much. Having concluded this point, thank you, Carissa. And we'll go on to the next item on our order of business. It is only fair that we bid farewell to our permanent representative from Peru, whose dates coincide with the bicentennial of Peru, which is 28 July, and it certainly makes sense to make reference to that important date for our dear Peru. The farewell is for Ambassador Hugo de Sela. Ambassador Hugo de Sela presented his credentials as a permanent representative of Peru on 23 November 2020, but as we know, he's always been closely associated with the organization and with the Council. As a member of the Peruvian Diplomatic Service, Ambassador de Sela, in addition to serving as permanent representative before the OAS, has been the ambassador of Peru in Brazil, Argentina, and the United States, as well as chief of staff to the Minister of Foreign Affairs on 2 occasions. He has also been president of the Peruvian Antarctic Institute, national coordinator of Peru in the Rio Group, member of the Peruvian delegation in the border negotiations with Ecuador in 1997-1998, and a member of the permanent representation of Peru to the ALADI, the Latin American Integration Association. Within the OAS General Secretariat, Ambassador de Sela on 2 occasions has served as Chief of Staff to the Secretary General and representative and advisor for the crisis and peace process in Central America, in addition to serving as an observer in several elections, including Nicaragua, Guatemala, Haiti, Paraguay, among others. Ambassador de Sela, on behalf of the Permanent Council, we are grateful for your contribution to promoting the values and principles of our organization. We wish you the best of success in your new projects. And I now offer the floor to the coordinators of the regional groups and all of the delegations who wish to take the floor at this time. In principle, I see my friend, Ambassador Carlos Hativa, who is asking for the floor on behalf of Ecuador. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the ALADI Group, I have the lofty honor of saying a few words of farewell to our illustrious friend and colleague, Ambassador Hugo de Sela Martinez. And of course, we all would have liked to have had him here longer in view of his diplomatic experience, qualities, and human qualities. His professional trajectory so confirms. He's been Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador to Argentina, Brazil, and ALADI, and he's twice been representative of his country to this organization, and likewise Chief of Staff to former Secretaries General João Baena Suarez and Insulza. That is to say, he belonged to that privileged club of public servants who know the ins and outs of this hemispheric forum from within and from without. And so during these months that he has been with us, Ambassador de Sela always displayed his vast mastery and knowledge of the inter-American system. His guiding criteria and recommendations were fundamental for identifying solutions and forging consensus on such delicate issues that we have addressed, including equitable distribution of COVID-19 vaccines and the Good Office's mission to Haiti, among others. With his departure, this regional forum loses one of its most valuable exponents, not only because of the qualities described, but also because of his great human qualities. Ambassador de Sela has brilliantly served his nation. We most appreciate him. We are most grateful to him, as well as wishing him the best for him and his family. We will really miss you, and a warm embrace. Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I now give the floor to Sir Ron Sanders, Ambassador of Antigua and Barbuda.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have the honor to bid farewell to a friend and colleague, Ambassador Hugo de Sela, the permanent representative of Peru, with whom CARICOM countries have had a very close relationship for a number of years. Ambassador de Sela has served this organization in many capacities, as we heard you say, Mr. Chairman, at your introduction to this item. While his other roles within the staff of the General Secretariat are well known and commended, my own interface with him has been as an alternate representative of Peru and then as its permanent representative to this organization. We were not always on the same side of an argument, and he was a formidable negotiator who pursued his government's position with zealous commitment, while simultaneously trying to persuade the rest of us of his unquestionable validity of the position that he has taken up. That, I suppose, is the best aspects of a true advocate who is also a diplomat. The fact that even after intense negotiations, we might not agree, did not prohibit him from always being open to discussion and debate. His years of experience in this organization and of our hemisphere, particularly Latin America, uniquely qualified him to offer advice on issues on which we as an organization sought consensus. I valued Hugo de Sela most when we happened to be on the same side in a debate. There can be no question of his commitment to multilateralism. He was at his best in seeking to forge consensus among member states on the values and principles set out in the charters that guide our common labors. As he concludes his tour of duty, Ambassador de Sela leaves this organization as a legendary and unforgettable character. I know that my colleagues from the CARICOM group and I have always respected his diplomatic skills and admired his determination. Ambassador de Sela, please be assured that as you depart this organization, you do so with the highest regard of CARICOM for your contributions. We extend to you and your family the very best wishes for the future. Thank you.
Ambassador of Guatemala, Rita Scioli de Claverie. Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the permanent representatives of Belize, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, as well as Panama and the Dominican Republic, member countries of the Central American Integration System, I'm honored to speak to bid farewell to a distinguished member of this forum, Ambassador Hugo de Sela Martinez, who concludes his mission after 43 years of service as a career diplomat, as ambassador of Peru to the United States of America and permanent representative of his country to the OAS since 23 November of 2020. Ambassador de Sela, at the helm of the permanent mission of his country, brought to the OAS his solid academic preparation and his bountiful diplomatic experience as a official of the Peruvian Foreign Ministry in major positions. He made significant contributions to the work of this organization, and we also highlight his profound knowledge of the OAS. In particular, we note his work as Chief of Staff to the Secretary General in 2 different periods, which no doubt marked his always well-informed, proactive, and committed participation in the OAS, his commitment to the values of democracy and to seeking consensus so as to make the Americas a better place for us all. The member countries of the Central American Integration System are grateful to Ambassador de Sela for his friendship, and we wish him and his family the best of success in the next stage. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ambassador. Brad Frieden for the United States is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for adding this agenda item to today's agenda so that we can say goodbye and thank you to our dear friend and colleague, Ambassador Hugo de Sela. The U.S. mission in particular has worked with Ambassador de Sela on many, many issues. His knowledge and wisdom regarding the OAS, its member states, and the hemisphere at large, and the result of decades of experience that others have also noted. This wisdom and knowledge has contributed immensely to the resolution of a wide variety of issues in this forum. Ambassador de Sela keeps his eye on the long-term goals of the OAS, and he is always thinking strategically. Of equal importance, he is always reasonable. And when we come to an impasse, either on how to approach an issue or the text of a resolution, Ambassador de Sela inevitably has a creative solution to bridge the gap so that we can move toward consensus. In short, Ambassador de Sela, you are a model of effectiveness and collegiality for all of us. You will be missed. And I wish to thank you personally for the wisdom that you have shared with me as I have begun to learn my way around the OAS. We wish you and your family the best of luck in your future endeavors. Thank you.
Audimar Nunes of Brazil is recognized. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Chairman, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, Ambassador Hugo de Sela. I would like, on behalf of the Brazilian delegation, to wish you the best of success. I was honored to serve in Lima when you were Deputy Foreign Minister. I worked under Ambassador Lopez. You were working under the Foreign Minister Lopez, a great friend and a great friend of Brazil. And I'd like to thank, on behalf of the government and people of Brazil, I'd like to thank you for the strong links with our country. As we all know, you were Chief of Staff to OAS Secretary General João Clemente Baena Suarez. You were Ambassador of the Republic of Peru in Brazil. And in Brazil, we highly value you, and we are most grateful to you. And we wish you and your family the best of success. You know that Brazil will always be most grateful to you. Thank you very much. Canada, Ambassador Hugh Adsett is recognized. You have the floor.
De Sela, Hugo, on behalf of Canada, let me wish you a very fond farewell and also wish you and your family the best. in the years to come. We've heard a little bit this morning from colleagues, and many of whom have spoken very eloquently about what you have contributed to this organization. I just want to add a couple of words of my own this morning. You've brought a wealth of experience and in-depth knowledge of not only the organization, but of the inter-American system to the work of the Permanent Council. And looking back on your career, more than 40 years as a very distinguished Peruvian diplomat, and the accomplishments that have been your lot to produce over the course of that career, I couldn't help but be struck by a thought this morning, which is many, I think, individuals that had spent so much time in the Foreign Service and had contributed so much might be tempted in the last few months, the last couple of years of their work, to perhaps take it a little easy. That is completely the opposite of the way that you work, and completely the opposite of your contributions to this organization. You bring a tremendous amount of energy to everything that you do. And that has been not only helpful to our work, but it's been inspiring. And I can say personally that I have appreciated the ability to drop you a line, to give you a call, to invite you to a meeting, to a discussion at the very last minute. And as others have said, you are often the key to finding a solution to what sometimes seemed like problems that could not be resolved, issues that couldn't be fixed amongst us. And so for that, we're very grateful. We're losing a truly committed and experienced multilateralist who has always had the best interests of the region at his heart, while also being a tremendous advocate for his country and for his position. From a Canadian perspective, we're also losing a very close friend. Thank you for your tireless work, including the organization of the 8th Summit of the Americas, your leadership in the Lima Group, and of course here at the Organization of American States. Hugo, un abrazo fuerte. Gracias.
Don Felipe Saez, Chile, has the floor next. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're pleased to be able to join others in bidding farewell to Ambassador Hugo de Sela. Ambassador is presently in Santiago at a commission at the ministry, so I speak here for him as well. We want to highlight what we consider to be 4 salient attributes of Ambassador de Sela over the time we've been privileged to know him. First of all, he's a stellar diplomat, vast experience, who more than once made the difference in the OAS's position. Secondly, he is a builder of consensus, even if initially people aren't always in agreement with him, but that's how that goes. Thirdly, he has a brilliant diplomatic career, and last but not least, as they say, he is a generous man in sharing his experience, his knowledge, his professionalism in the broadest possible sense with every one of his colleagues. And so, Ambassador de Sela, all the very best to you and to your family in this new stage that you are entering. Thank you. Thank you so much to you, says the chair. The ambassador for Venezuela is next, Ambassador Tarek. Thank you very, very much, Chair. I hope you can indulge me if I steal a few minutes, and I'm going to steal them from our ambassador, esteemed ambassador from Ecuador, Hativa, because he has already said what we all feel. But I felt the need to intervene to offer a few remarks of my own to Ambassador Hugo de Sela, quite differently from the position of many, many other ambassadors that I've met. I have to say I only had the privilege of working with Ambassador de Sela for too short a time. But it was clear to me, even in that brief time, the stature of the man. And quite frankly, what others have already rightly pointed out. Here's a man with an encyclopedic knowledge and experience of this continent, an ability, really quite remarkable ability, and deft ability, I might add, to intervene, to make the difference, particularly where positions were pretty entrenched. You made the difference. I wish you the best, Hugo, and you know you have my own personal gratitude and that of the legitimate government of Venezuela, which I represent here. Thank you. Thank you, says the chair. We turn now to Raul Martinez, the ambassador for Paraguay. Thank you, Chair, says the ambassador for Paraguay, Raul Martinez. I just want to echo the views of so many others to say for my part and for the part of Paraguay, how very, very grateful we are to Ambassador Hugo de Sela for his enormous contribution to all of us as a delegate of his country and for the high circles in which he moved at the OAS over so many years. Ambassador de Sela has a great deal to teach us. Indeed, he has taught us a great deal. He's a pragmatic man, and that certainly is not the least of his virtues. I personally remember him as one of the great deal makers of the last summit of the Americas and the Lima commitment, el compromiso de Lima, as it is known. And can we ever forget the role that he played as he was at the head of the electoral mission to Paraguay? And for that also, we remain deeply grateful. Ambassador, all the best. Bravo for everything. And to you and your family, much happiness. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. Alejandro Ordóñez, the ambassador for Colombia, has the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with the permission of our regional coordinator, Ambassador Játiva of Ecuador, let me, in my personal capacity and on behalf of Colombia, express our own gratitude for everything that he has endeavored and achieved, not only for the Inter-American system, for the OAS, but for Colombia, not least. The wealth of your experience, I have no doubt, played an enormous role in marking this organization in its last decade of existence, let me just say. Over these last 10 years, you're an old sea wolf, Hugo de Sela, let's put it out there, and your very rich experience will not only be unforgettable, but I dare say indelible. We're all grateful to you. A big hug to you, dear Hugo. Distinguished Secretary General, you have the floor now. Thank you, Chair. Esteemed Hugo, well, what can I say? It is, quite frankly, a very tall order to begin to describe your vast experience. Maybe in 2 words, it would be diplomacy in general and the OAS in particular. Both spheres are indelibly marked by your name. And it's not a mark that will be soon erased. You have marked, you have changed multilateralism in this hemisphere, and I think diplomacy runs in your veins, not only, by the way, for those who don't know it, for being the scion of a renowned diplomatic figure in Peru, but because it's who you are. You ooze diplomacy, what can I say? You have a brilliant academic background at the highest possible levels, but even that is not as great as your ability to seize the moment and to size it up. That is a gift, a very rare gift. And so your career certainly is extraordinary, no matter what we wish to highlight. Being twice chef de cabinet here in the OAS, not once but twice, that's not nothing. But that is one more indelible mark. The crafting of the letter of Cartagena, the democratization in the region, the fresh and new air that breathed through the organization. And the 8 is the Washington Protocol, your input to the Charter of the Americas, not least for the Declaration of the Americas that was the result of the Lima Summit in 2015. You have been a brilliant, brilliant ambassador in the broadest sense of the term ambassador, lucid, practical, to the point. And all of us who have had the privilege of dealing with you professionally and personally have also to say that you're a gentleman, you're funny, you are not only knowledgeable, but you share your knowledge easily, not in a pompous manner. You don't lecture, you share, and everybody is the better for it. It's really tough to say goodbye. I can hardly believe, and quite frankly, I don't believe it. I'll believe it when I see it. I am willing to bet, but not too far down the road, you're going to pop up again here in the OAS because, hey, you're part of the establishment. And I'm not sure how many times we have bid you farewell, but hey, you pop up when one least expects you. So I'm not going to say goodbye. I'm going to see you soon. That's my farewell. Thank you. Well, Ambassador de Sela, says the chair, it's down to you. Thank you, and thank you very much to you, Chair, and to all my esteemed friends, Luis Almagro, Nestor Mendez, dear friends and colleagues all. Well, I'm going to confess that, as you may already know, I'm not often at a loss for words. But I sincerely say to you, I'm pretty nearly there today. I have been deeply moved by the loveliness of your tributes and the heartfelt nature of what everybody has just said and what my good friend Luis Almagro has just said. Pretty much sizes the thing up. One way or another, I'm speaking now for myself, I feel very much part and parcel of the OAS. If you think it's questionable whether this is goodbye, I'm saying to myself, I'd rather look at it as a farewell in the sense of see you around, because I would love to be associated with the OAS in some form or fashion, because you understand, I have devoted great swaths of my personal life and my career to the OAS. And the last time that I have been here in this last tour, I have refreshed and renewed my links with the representatives of the region and my understanding of its present stance. Everybody knows that there's not a dearth of people who criticize the OAS. But guess what? The minute there's an OAS, everybody's eyes in the region turn one way, and they turn to the OAS. And so let's not kid ourselves, nor let us be demoralized or otherwise dispirited by the ongoing critique of some. We're here and we make the difference. Now, the reason for my departure at this point is that, you know what, as a diplomat, the time does come when one has to retire. And so that's why I'm retiring from the diplomatic service. But guess what? That doesn't mean I'm going to disappear from diplomatic circles. I am still active therein and intend to continue to be so. And so, no doubt, dear friends, we will meet in other fora, perhaps, in the midst of other crises or problems, because we seem in this region to quite frankly, not get out of one fix before we're facing the next. But I don't wish to prolong my intervention, Chair, simply to say, from my heart, I'm deeply touched by your kind words and deeply moved as well by the genuine affection that I am being shown. And I'm missing you already, quite frankly. So a very, very tight hug to all of you with my very deep thanks. Thank you, Hugo. And we wish you and your family, as everyone has said, all the best. We now move, ladies and gentlemen, to the next report that we have before us. That's the presentation of the annual report of the Inter-American Children's Institute to the 51st regular session of the General Assembly. And that being the next item on our agenda today, this is what we have before it. It was distributed, as you can see in our agenda, as document CP Doc 5682/21. And we have with us Victor Giorgi, our very good friend, Director General of the Institute. Victor, you're always welcome. This is your home. You have the floor. Very good morning, Mr. Chairman, distinguished Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, esteemed representatives. It's always a pleasure to be with you and to share with you the work that we here over the last year at the Inter-American Children's Institute have been carrying out. And I hope you will be able to see the presentation as I sketch it out for you. We are here, in fact, presenting the report that was put to the General Assembly, but take note, not approved. And that is why, and that is because, rather, there was no in-person meeting of our directing council in the year 2020. And that's why it was noted, it was presented there virtually, but not fully approved because our regulations proscribe the approval of any report that is not in person. But here we go. As you gathered through the excellent report from PAHO, Dr. Carissa Etienne, we have been battling COVID. And that necessarily generated a spike in the demand for assistance to children. No surprise. And so we had to bend over backwards to look at our methodology, to suspend missions, of course, which made it much harder to intervene in situ. And we sought then to morph into new modalities to be as effective as possible. But paradoxically, guess what? Our presence in the region was increased. We, of course, like many, are very much anchored in the budget that we have available, but counterparts financially also made an effort, and that made it possible for us to be much more present than usual in the region. We met constantly with civil society, with various other activities and groups that made a big difference to what we were able to do. And we were able to move forward to the election of our president, the attorney Lolis Maria Salas Montes, the titular representative of Honduras, was elected president, and the vice president is in the hand of the representative for Paraguay, Dr. Teresa Martinez, as you can see in the right-hand orange box. We also drew up a plan of action, this on the basis of numerous different networks, technical connections, the networks particularly of boys, girls, and adolescents. Sub-regional meetings as well were held in a virtual form. These sub-regional meetings are very much part of the Directing Council, and that was specifically requested So we had meetings in Central America and in South America in various places, and indeed in the Caribbean. I'm just sketching it out in broad terms, but despite then the increase in demand and the marked change of context, we see that our plan of action for 2019 to 2023 stands firm. It's really, you might call it a roadmap, but it's our navigation schedule here. And despite COVID, what we planned out stands as we saw it. COVID only underscored the challenge, of course, heightened it surely, and not least the inequities that have been noted regionally over 2019 and since then. So let me move to the next slide here. One of the main axes that we concentrated on was our concentration on trying to eliminate violence, and that goes to 6.2 of the development goals. And as you know, the General Assembly of the OAS did ask us to take the hemispheric temperature and come up with a diagnosis, a sum up of where we stand on violence against children, and what could we consider to be a convention to eliminate violence that is particularly directed towards children, and we're still working on that, certainly. A progress report was put to the CAJP of this organization not long ago, FYI. Then we also need to point out that 18 countries sent 58 students to our virtual course in training in this area. And the studies that have been carried out on the various legal framework that involves physical chastisement of children is one of the points that was looked at particularly. Under that rubric, there was a semi-in-person, semi-virtual session that launched. Chile, Ecuador, Honduras, and Paraguay were there, total of 100 students. And the focus, as you can see here, the webinar was learning more about strategies and mechanisms to bolster the mental health of children and youth in the Caribbean region, and not just violence, but the mental health. That was another focus. Now, moving now to the guide to achieve a conditional suspension of the processing of penal trials against adolescents. There were 14 member states, 49, I do say 14 member states who participated in that virtual course, 48 students all told. And as you know, one of the statements of the observations that have been repeatedly put forward with regard to these programs is very much to do with how institutional violence within the system, capital S, can be gradually eliminated. We also looked at the International Prize for Juvenile Justice Without Borders. Next. With regard to children in the context of human mobility, we carried out a first study on early childhood and human mobility. It's already been published. Then there is a focus on children and adolescents, again in the context of human mobility, an approximation as to the role of systems of promotion and protection of rights. There was a training course on this subject. 332 people participated, with particular attention to the protection to be offered boys, girls, and adolescents who are migrants. This was in cooperation with the International Organization for Migration, the IOM. There were webinars, institutional responses, the right to live in a family in the context of human mobility, There were technical links that were operational and that were exchanged and were the source of debate. 7 different interchanges focused on these issues. 10 member states, which you see listed here, participated, and we have ongoing horizontal cooperation that is being carried out. And you may be aware of what we call the Quito process and the Group for Human Mobility and its subgroup, its regional subgroup for the protection of childhood in emergencies, health or otherwise. Now, in this next slide, we focus on the right to live in family, in one's family. This is new, and quite frankly, it's one of the great breakthroughs of this period in our observatory. And in the observations that were drawn up, a number of different points became clearer, and courses were organized on human rights and the debate that arose as to different experiences. There were studies that went to how we might look at the legal framework a little more clearly and to avoid the loss or lack of rights. And so from that observatory, that regional observatory on the right to live in one's family continues to be absolutely important. And we looked also at the absence of parental rights in the region. We trained, again, in terms of human rights, drilling down especially on the situation of boys and girls because one or both of their parents have been deprived of liberty. And alas, that is ever more the case in this region, and people don't pay sufficient attention to it. Both parents are in jail. What are you going to do? And so that course garnered 32 participants from 12 different member states. Next. We have, of course, maintained the Inter-American Program for cooperation to prevent and repair the cases of international removal or subtraction or kidnapping of minors by one of their parents. And this also generated a great deal of interest. 35 people participated in that training, and from 16 member states. There was a virtual course in English. 22 people participated there from 7. And there were various studies and reports drawn up on the setting of a legal domicile for a child, boy, girl, or adolescent, where that legal domicile is different from that of his or her parents. And again, this is a matter that our central authorities have paid particular attention to on the web. Next. In terms of the child and adolescent participation in the Inter-American Program, which is an element of the mandate that was generated by our last General Assembly. We spoke of training adults, and this was done. There were 104 technical operators were trained from 16 states within the Inter-American system. You have them listed here. There was a particular focus on 40 technical links, enlaces técnicos. Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Chile, Paraguay, Peru, and Uruguay were those technical links. And we also launched courses to train boys, girls, and adolescents in the instruments, and the course was Participating is Learning. And this was a request of Ecuador's, and we had 36 kids participate. As you know, there is also the type of course that is carried out by correspondence, and this has led to periodic reports being published. Now, in this next slide, as you know, I've been stressing the role of the networks, and the role of networks, as we all recognize, especially in the context of the pandemic, has been key everywhere. And it certainly has consolidated in the red, in the network called SURCA for South America, with the countries you see listed in a pale yellow at the far left. But in this last period, we want to point out the establishment of the Central American, Mexican, and Dominican Republic network, which has really gotten off to a very great start. The founding documents are established. The legal framework for its operations has been established. We also have, see the block on the right, an advisory group for the participation of children and adolescents. By its acronym in Spanish, the acronym is GRAPIA. And you can see the participants from South America, Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Central America, Mexico, and the Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Mexico, and Guatemala, and the English group, where we have the Caribbean represented by Jamaica, and there's also Canada. Now, we had 2 yearly courses that were held. We published 3 editions with various different articles that the adolescents involved submitted, and a number of other documents. You will see them listed here that were also compiled with the input from children and adolescents, where they spoke about their experience, their rights, which are not on shutdown, they said quite aptly, even if they were, and greater participation from the southern sphere. Central America also is very richly represented, as you see here. There are the participants, as you see in yellow on the right, the representatives of the different parts of the region. Caribbean used to be present with 1 or 2 in the face-to-face meetings, but we've got 5 adolescents representing the Caribbean countries you see there. Esteemed Victor, we are about to close our meeting in 1 minute, and so I'm deeply sorry, says the chair. I ask you to wrap it up. There were also regional meetings on violence, education, post-pandemic. And there is also a safe space on internet for exchanges to take place. Periodically. Next, please. We're moving, clipping ahead. We're almost there. Please bear with me. Next. Let's go on. The other issue that I want to point out, the program that has a priority attention, of course, is social or sexual exploitation. And you have Ecuador, Panama, Uruguay, Guatemala. That's our source of technical assistance. There were 3 technical links that were set up, as you see in the middle of this slide. 10 member states conformed that group on sexual exploitation. And here, almost at the end, I'm just going to paint this very broad brush. 10 courses, 25 countries, 168 persons participated. Next. As to the institutional consolidation that we have seen over these last months, we became more tightly linked to the universal system. We had a very fluid conversation with the directing council, despite the normal problems attendant to the moment. We had virtual cooperation and, of course, operated with a minimal structure P2 and G4 are being processed at the moment, so we will have, we hope soon, 3 staff members. At the moment, we've only got 1. Now, here is a view of the regular budget, and I would say that as I said, we only have 1 permanent staff. We've got CPRs and others. But there is a process, of course. As I said, it's a P2 and 4. But the last drop in staff was very serious, and the challenges of the region continue apace from September. And finally, the last slide. Good, says the chair. Well, that's it. It's muchas gracias. Thank you very much. That's it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Victor. I appreciate your statement. And let me suggest the following. It is now 12:02. We must stop for reasons of budgetary concerns and the need for our own rest and the rest of the interpreters. We will meet again in a special meeting later, but we will pick up where we are leaving off now. So the meeting stands adjourned for now. Thank you.